story time about how I found out my ex-boyfriend was literally a pathological liar while I'm getting ready. So me and this guy met through Snapchat, through SFS. If you guys know what I'm talking about, I used to be the SFS queen. I literally did that shit with everybody. I regret it now. So we started talking and shit. We're gonna call him Bean. Anyways, but we started talking. It was good for a couple of months. Keep in mind, we were talking for about like 6 months. Yeah. So actually, me and Bean never really made things official for good reasons, but we actually did talk for like 6 months, so I feel like it kind of counts. I don't really know. So basically, he didn't live in the same city as me. He lived like about 2 hours away, which is not that far, but anyways, we were talking about seeing each other and like actually like meeting in real life. I never got to meet this man. Yeah. So this one night we were gonna meet at my local mall, like a little child I was. We were gonna meet her at my local mall, and I was waiting for him to come for like about 3 hours. Yeah, I waited in a public mall for 3 hours for him to show up. Did he show up? No, he didn't. I was sitting there like an idiot, blowing up his phone, asking where he is. No answer. Turned his location off and everything. No answer for about 3 hours. So what did I do? I called my mom, got her to pick me up, and I went straight home and fucking bawled my eyes out. He finally texted me when I went home. Coincidence. He finally texted me back and he was like, "Oh, sorry, I got busy and I couldn't answer. I got busy selling." Next. This Bean was a bum. He was a bum. He was literally a bum. That was the moment I realized he was a bum. But did I block him? Did I break up with him? No. Because I was also a bum. Used to be a bum. He gave me a dumb little excuse, and me being also dumb, I believed it. I was honestly really fucking hurt though, because like that was like the first time we actually like made plans after talking for so fucking long, and I was so excited to meet him, but he cared about selling more than seeing me. Who wouldn't want to fucking... So he basically did the same thing about 5 more times, and I got over it. I was like, "Hey, I'm literally done with your shit. Every time we make plans, you don't follow through. You literally never fucking show up. So what the fuck is going on? If we're gonna be in a relationship, I'm gonna want to see you 24/7. So it was a night when I was gonna like end shit with him, because I was just tired of it, bro. Like, don't fucking do that. Like, that pisses me off so much when people don't follow through with plans. I'm gonna block you. I'm gonna ghost you. So I ended shit with him. He got butthurt, telling me he's gonna change, telling me he's gonna see me, he's gonna come see me. Anyways, he got butthurt. So what did he do 2 hours later? He made his best friend text me, call me actually, tell me he died because he overdosed, because he was so sad that I broke up with him. I was so fucking gullible. I fucking believed that shit. I was freaking out. I was literally fucking bawling my eyes out for like 5 fucking hours. Fucking texting him non-stop. Did I get an answer? No. Not one text back. So I literally thought this motherfucker died. I thought Bean died on me. Like, and the worst part was his best friend was literally making me feel like it was my fault. I was getting no text back, no nothing, so I just went to bed thinking that Bean fucking died on me. And that it was my fault. So I woke up the next morning. I had a text from Bean. Woke up from the dead. Bean woke up from the dead. He is Jesus. He has risen. He woke up from the dead. Me being the little dumb bitch that I was. I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Like I'm gonna come back to you. Like, you were just in the hospital because you OD'd." He was never in the hospital. He never OD'd. What? He doesn't even use fucking drugs. He doesn't even sell. He lied. He lied about everything. Everything. Literally everything. Because I had receipts. His best friend literally sent me a fake picture, probably from fucking Google, of someone in the hospital. And maybe you fucking believe them. I really hope Bean doesn't see this, because, bro, oh my god. After that, he started lying about like small shit, like where he was going, who he was with, like just small shit. And it just like ticked me off again. Like we were gonna see each other again and he didn't show up. Literally, what is what he didn't show up? And I found out he cheated because I logged into his Snap and I found some questionable shit on there. So of course I proceed to end shit with him again, and he made up another lie. What? Shocker. Be so serious. This time he lied. He blamed that he cheated because his dad died the night before. Me being a little dumb girl, I believed him and I felt so bad. So I was like, oh my god, I literally cannot break up with him. Like, his father just died. So I go back, like 2 weeks pass or something. Guess who walks in the room? His father! His father walked in the room and had a full-on conversation with him. Come on, Bean. Didn't your father die? Didn't he die? And then I like confronted him and he was embarrassed. And yeah, that was it. That was like the last time I talked to him. He actually like, he tried to like reach out to me, but I was like, please stop talking to me. I don't want to talk to you. You're literally a pathological liar. Like, get away from me. Don't text me. Block my number. I actually blocked him. After that, like a couple months like passed by and I would just get like random girls literally text me, be like, oh my god, girl, like he was talking to me while you guys were like talking and shit. Fast forward, he got a new girl and she exposed him. Big time. Well deserved though.
Am I the asshole for punching my sister's boyfriend after I found out he was abusing her? My poor sister is so dumb. And for that matter, so is the rest of my family. My parents are extremely Christian. My sister and I were raised to never interact with men. And if you were to date a man, it was because you were going to marry him. Do you see where I'm going with this? My sister is 22, by the way. She's never had a boyfriend and she's never even spoken to boys before. When she met her current boyfriend, he love bombed her in the first week. He was a perfect gentleman in front of my parents. He said he was Christian. He said that he loved animals and that he had a 9-to-5 job. Well, let me tell you, it's all lies. My sister stopped talking to us for some reason. Obviously, this made me extremely suspicious, so I started going over to his place when she did. That's when I found out that he was pretty much home all day. All day. Sitting on his couch watching movies. What do you think my sister was doing? He would do his laundry, clean his kitchen, cook for him, take care of his dogs. The worst part is I found bruises on her neck and her arms. And when I did, she broke down and told me the truth. He got fired from his job and took it out on her. She said he locked her in his closet for 3 hours and hit her. And the worst part is, my parents told me to mind my business. When I told my parents that my sister had bruises on her neck and her arms, they told me to stay out of it. Essentially, I needed to mind my own business. I could not believe the words that were coming out of my father's mouth. When I looked at my mother, she had tears in her eyes. And that's when I asked them both, as your daughters, do you think that we deserve to get abused? And of course, they said no. This is when my sister's boyfriend started insisting that she move in with him. I did my hardest to convince her not to. Short of tying her and keeping her in our house, there was nothing I could do. That's when I see my sister walking out of my house with her bags, only to move in with her abuser. Can you guys put yourself in my shoes? I was trembling with anger. I went to her and I got down on my knees and begged her not to leave, but she still walked out with tears in her eyes. I could tell she didn't want to move out. I didn't see my sister for another 2 weeks. She finally came over, and when she did, I interrogated her and literally recorded it. She told me that he wasn't abusing her as badly. He was only checking her phone and only letting her eat at certain times of the day, but at least he wasn't hitting her. And she told me the worst news of all. Proposed, pressured her into saying yes. My parents were happy. Not only is my sister now engaged to her abuser, my parents are happy about it. My parents know that they've already done it, so essentially, she has to marry him. At first, I thought the same, but the more I think about it, just because my sister did it with this man, why does she have to marry him? The abuse is abuse. There's no justification for it. I had to do something about it. I was at my wit's end. Picture this happening to your sister. What would you do? Found his mother on Facebook and went to visit her with my mom. I needed my mom to join me on this. The fact that she would just cry about it and not do anything pissed me off more than anything in my life. We showed up under the pretext that we wanted to have lunch with her. And to my surprise, his family is extremely wealthy. They lived in a great neighborhood, and their house was the biggest on the block. And she also had an amazing spread for us, with caviar and champagne. My mom and I were stunned. I mean, her son doesn't look like the type to come from a rich family. He has a shitty apartment and no job. His mom told us all the tea. She hadn't spoken to him in over 3 years. He had slapped her before, and they stopped giving him money. So all the times that he said he was employed, it was his parents giving him money. His mom told us that we needed to get my sister away from him, and that's what we did. Once I found out from his own mother that he had abused her, my mom and I knew that we needed to get her away from him. We went straight to their apartment, and at first we could hear him telling my sister not to open open the door. After 10 minutes of my mother and I begging, my sister finally opens the door. All I did was grab her and pull her out the door. When her boyfriend came at me, I punched him as hard as I could, and he didn't come after us. A few days later, his own mother sent my sister $20,000 to cover the cost of the lawyers. My sister got a restraining order, my mom kicked my dad out of the house, and the three of us live in peace now. I'm taking them to Europe for the summer. Would you have done the same?
My neighbour's an arsehole, so I caused a catastrophic rift in his marriage. So, bit of a backstory here. I live in a predominantly Mormon town. But I myself am not Mormon, but you do you. I'm fine with it. However, I do receive a fair amount of criticism from my across-the-road neighbour, we'll call him Steve, for our religious differences. So, Steve has about 10 children, and I am the guardian of my young sister. So, about a year ago, I bought my sister a cat for her birthday. Steve was not happy about this. He told me that the cat was not allowed to be on his side of the road. So I was like, okay, whatever. And then a couple of days later, he called animal control because the cat was wandering on his side of the road. So animal control turned around and was like, you can't do anything considering it's not on your property. So the next time the cat goes onto his side of the road, he picks it up, he takes it to the animal shelter, he pretends the cat is his, and they demand for them to put the cat down. The shelter obviously turned around and was like, we can't do that because you don't have the papers of ownership and she's also chipped. It was this big whole situation, and he has literally never been nice to us. For example, on the day we moved in, my little sister decided to make everyone in the neighbourhood some brownies, which is adorable. So she goes over to Steve's house, she knocks on the door, but there's no answer. So she decided to just pop them on his porch and she wandered back over to our house. When she gets back to ours, she turns around and she sees Steve looking her dead in the eye and sees him throwing the brownies in the bin. There has literally been so many things, like he gets his kids to come over and knock over our rubbish bin every rubbish day, so stuff goes everywhere. Okay, let's bring it real time. So me and my best friend the other day were talking about how we used to have pen pals, and that night I was doing a little bit of browsing on the internet and I found this website, and the website was called prisonpenpals.com. So naturally I clicked on and found an array of prisoners that were looking for a pen pal. So after looking for a little while, I found this guy that was on death row. He'd done some not very nice things, as I'm sure you can tell. So how this works is that you send an email with the letter on, the guards print it off and they give it to the prisoner writes back and it gets sent to your address so that your address is protected from the prisoners. And at this point, I started thinking about my good old friend Steve. So I started to write a letter about how I was a trapped and secretly gay and Mormon man with a wife. I said how he had 10 kids and he was looking to start a marital affair with a prisoner. I whacked in Steve's address and I sent it. And not gonna lie, even though I had my petty satisfaction from it, I expected absolutely nothing to come from this. I kind of just thought he'd be going through his mail and not see it and then just toss it out so nothing would ever come of it, like I say. But boy, was I wrong. With it being a small town, one of my acquaintances works for the guy's business. And he was like, oh my God, have you heard about Steve? And I was like, no, because, I hadn't. And this guy, he filled me in on all the goss. So one of Steve's kids had actually found the letter and took it to Steve's wife. So the wife actually read the letter from the response from the prisoner. And apparently she threw an absolute fit. Which, pop off queen, we all would. Anyway, long story short, he's now out. She made him pack his bags. And apparently this wasn't the first time he had tried to start an affair with another man. And apparently this was just the last straw for her. And I'm low-key shocked, horrified, but low-key kind of amused by this whole predicament.
When I was 13, I made the worst decision of my life. It traumatized me so much. I'm now 19 and I regret it every day. I decided to move away from my family to a completely different city 2 hours away and live in an apartment with 2 girls I barely knew, one of them I had never met, to pursue gymnastics more seriously. The way this worked is Monday through Friday we had gymnastics and we would do school upstairs online, and then every night a different parent would come stay with us in our 1-bedroom apartment, and then at the end of the week on Friday we would all go back home and then drive back up to the apartment Sunday night. So I would see my mom once or twice a week, and then some of Friday, all of Saturday, and some of Sunday. Why she let me do this, I have no idea. Also, all 3 of us were about the same age and I was in 8th grade. The only good thing that came out of this is I met one of my best friends who was the girl I didn't know. The gym environment ended up being absolutely traumatizing and we were all being abused. Things went south pretty quick. We were all crying multiple times a day. We would cry before practice, we would cry at night anticipating practice, we'd cry after practice, and our parents were like, you made this decision, you gotta stick to it. But I don't think they knew how bad it was. We all started to experience panic attacks and we just wanted to be home. I absolutely hated like every second there, and I'm pretty sure they did too. I have so many stories of just whack, horrible things that happened there. But like I said, there was one good thing that came out of it, and that was meeting my best friend, and she was the girl that I didn't know when I first moved in. We became inseparable like super quick. We did everything together, and when we weren't at practice or worrying about practice, we were like laughing. The whole time we were supposed to be doing school, we would be laughing. Like, I never laughed harder than I did with that girl. We would have movie nights like all the time, and since we were all staying in the same bedroom, we ended up making a fort underneath our beds because they were all touching, and we'd watch movies under there. My best friend ended up bringing her cat, and we also had a hamster. That hamster is a story for a different time, but we had so much fun having like the cat there. We were definitely all trauma bonded because we went through so much together. I still talk to the girl I was best friends with. I actually FaceTimed her the other night, and she's my best friend I've ever had in my entire life. I wish I could have met my bestie in a different way because the damage was so not worth it.
Groomsman has had with my fiance. My fiance, 24 female, and I, 25 male, are getting married in about 6 months. One of my groomsmen is a friend, 26 male, that I've been very close with for like 8 years. One of my best friends. Well, a few years ago, when we were all in college together, we had a threesome. We were all drunk and we ended up deeply regretting it. Whenever I remember it, I cringe with shame, and I can't even say it out loud if it comes up while my fiance and I are talking. However, it basically went undiscussed ever since. Never talked about it, just tried to forget it. And for the most part, I did forget about it. We continue to be friends and hang out regularly for years. The three of us have even hung out together with no awkwardness. Since my friend has been one of my closest friends for so long that whenever I proposed, I made him a groomsman at the wedding without even thinking about it. But for the last couple of months, I can't stop thinking about him and my fiance together, especially since I found out shortly after that night that they continued to have after I passed out on the couch. So it especially hurts thinking about that moment of them alone together. Also, on top of this, before the incident, my friend had inappropriately touched my girlfriend after a night of drinking when the three of us fell asleep in the same room. Also, he continued to flirt with her after the incident and after we knew it was a mistake and would never happen again. I deeply regret and am ashamed of my actions at the time. I guess I didn't have enough respect for myself or my girlfriend to address this and confront him at the time about these and 2 other things. But basically, now I feel like it's humiliating to have him as a groomsman and that I should tell him he can't be up there with us anymore, especially since other people have heard about those. So it's not just a secret between the 3 of us anymore. At the same time, he is my friend and it feels crazy to do this to him. I also don't want to make waves and create a rift in the larger friend group since they are a part of the wedding party as well. It also feels silly and unfair to bring this up now after years of saying nothing and acting like best friends. I know my friend is ashamed of that night and of his actions from college, and I believe he has changed. We all have. I have no idea how to approach this, or if I approach him about this, or if I'm overreacting/overthinking. Maybe I shouldn't let it bother me since it was so long ago. But every time I'm reminded of that night, I get filled with shame and embarrassment. I don't even know who I can talk to about this.
The arsehole for telling my sister she's ridiculous for divorcing her husband over a TikTok prank. So my sister, who we'll call Amy, was married to a guy who we'll call Steve for about 3 years. This was until about 2 months ago when they separated over this prank that he pulled. I had always thought he was a really nice guy. He was super funny, nice to be around. And that is kind of why I think this whole thing is just so ridiculous over something that was just a mistake. So here's what happened. So Steve, whose job is on TikTok, decided he was going to pull a prank on Amy's 15-year-old son. Now, I won't go too much into what the prank was, but it ended up in my nephew falling and banging his head. And that is the whole reason she's decided to separate from him. He was actually rushed into hospital and is now being treated for brain damage. Now struggles to eat because he's got impaired motor control, and bless him, he even has a very limited speech. It's now got to the point where if you ask him something, he'll just stare at you. It's gotten to the point where my sister will have to kneel down next to him and very calmly and quietly ask him what he needs to get him to respond. He's become such an angry kid, and now all I see when I look at him is his 7-year-old self just masquerading in his 15-year-old body. Now, these symptoms are of course absolutely awful and possibly permanent, but I keep saying it was just a mistake on behalf of Steve. I believe that divorce is way too much of a harsh punishment for this mistake. And instead, they should have just negotiated boundaries and disallowed TikTok in the house or something along those lines. Because her husband was the only one using TikTok in the house. I've been trying to keep the decision of the divorce to myself, but I am secretly mourning the loss of my brother-in-law. However, yesterday I went over and the topic of the incident came up. So I told her exactly what I thought. I said, I think you're being ridiculous over just a mistake. I told her that it might be worth considering her options here because, clearly this one was so emotionally driven. And my sister was not happy about this. Amy said that I was free to marry him because he'd be free soon. And my mother also interjected at that point. And despite liking my brother-in-law before, my mum turned around and said that I have no say in what my sister does with her life. And she then said that my precious brother-in-law ruined my nephew's life with his incompetence. So at that point, I yelled at them and said, this society's inability to forgive mistakes is the reason we're all in this mess. They eventually kicked me out when the argument went on for longer than 10 minutes or so. Do you know what? I thought I was being exceptionally reasonable here. However, my boyfriend is also on their side. So what do you think? Am I the arsehole? I'm going to add my comments in here because I never get involved in the drama and I have opinions on this video. So the writer says that it was just a mistake, but I'm sorry, a mistake is getting someone the wrong type of Pepsi Max, not causing them to have a brain damage. And I think she should take her sister's advice and marry him because she is clearly in love with Steve.
Humans were supposed to be cowards. The Galactic Federation's species registry had them listed as a 2 of 16 on the aggression index. Our interactions with the Terran Union up until this point supported those conclusions. They had not fought any wars among themselves in centuries, and had formed a unified world government prior to achieving FTL travel. They had responded with eagerness rather than hostility to first contact, unlike many species. Earth had resolved every dispute through diplomacy and compromise since it became an official member of the Federation. For example, a few years ago, the expansionist Zanuck claimed a Terran mining colony as their territory. The Federation braced itself for a minor conflict, as they expected the humans to defend their outpost. But the humans simply shrugged and agreed to hand off the planet for a small yearly fee. Rather than going to war, the Terrans somehow ended up as prominent trading partners for the Zanuck. There was also an incident where the paranoid Hoda'al arrested Terran ambassadors on charges of being spies. Imprisoning diplomats with zero evidence was a clear provocation to war, but the humans did nothing. They didn't even raid the facility where their representatives were being held. They simply opened back-channel negotiations with the Hoda'al and arranged a prisoner exchange, swapping a few smugglers for their people. Thoughts on the humans varied depending on who you asked. Some in the Federation found their pacifism commendable and appreciated their even-tempered statesmanship. Others thought that it was weakness that led them to avoid war. I was in the latter camp. The only reason not to respond to blatant insults with aggression was that they didn't have the wits or the strength for it. When the Devourers came, the 3 most militaristic species in the galaxy, as per the aggression index, banded together to stand against their approach. We didn't know much about them, but we called them the Devourers, since their sole mission was to drain stars of their energy. I can't tell you why they would do such a thing. Whatever their reasons, they would take one system by force, suck it dry, and move on to the next. Our fleet, the finest the Federation had to offer, suffered heavy losses when we clashed with enemy destroyers. We fought as hard as we could, and it didn't matter. Our weapons hardly seemed to scratch their ships. It was a tough decision, but I ordered what was left of the fleet to retreat. As much as we needed to stop them, we would lose the entire armada if we stuck around any longer. I sent out a distress signal, relaying our grim situation and pleading for reinforcements. There were other species with lesser but still potent militaries within the Federation, but my request was returned with silence. Not a single one of those cowards volunteered to help. Hearing of our defeat, I suppose they decided to flee and fend for themselves. I thought we were on our own, until we detected human ships jumping to our position. How ironic. The only ones who came to our aid were the galactic pushovers. There were only 5 of them, according to our sensors, which was not nearly enough to mount a fight. A pathetic showing, but it was more than the 0 ships that had been sent by the other Federation powers. Sir, the Terrans are hailing us. What do they think they're gonna do? Talk the enemy to death? First Officer Blez quipped. I heard a few snickers from my crew, but quickly shushed them. We need all the help we can get. On screen. A dark-haired human blinked onto the view screen. Federation vessel, this is Commander Mikhail Rykov of the Terran Union. We are here to assist in any way possible. I bowed my head graciously. Thank you for coming, Commander Rykov. I am General Kilon. Please join our formation and help cover our retreat. Retreat? The human commander blinked a few times, looking confused. Our intentions are to engage and terminate the enemy. With 5 ships, all due respect, the Devourers number in the thousands, and they crushed our fleet of equal magnitude. I wouldn't expect a peaceful species like yours to understand warfare, but it's in your interest to follow our lead, I said. Commander Rykov seemed even more confused. You think humans are a peaceful species? What the hell? Why would you think that? Well, you never fight with anyone. You resolve everything with talk. Humans are the lowest-rated species on the aggression index, I replied. I see. The Federation has misjudged us there. Do you know why we avoid war, General? Because you don't think you can win? Fear? The human laughed heartily. No, it's because we know what we are, what we're capable of, and nobody's deserved that quite yet. The idea of Terrans making ominous threats would have been a joke to me before now, but something in Rykov's tone told me he believed what he was saying with conviction. This was a clear case of delusion stemming from a lack of experience with interstellar warfare. The Devourers would make fools of the Earthlings and punish them for their overconfidence. However, if the commander really wanted to send his men to a slaughter, I would not stop him. If you insist on fighting, I certainly won't stand in your way. But know that you're on your own. We're getting out of here. What is your plan? I asked. We brought a nanite bomb we developed. We've never actually used one before, since in about 5% of simulations, they don't stop with localized entities and consume all matter in the universe. Commander Rykov said this way too casually for my liking. But we programmed them to self-destruct after a few seconds, which will probably work. Ensign Carter, fire at the enemy in 5 seconds. My eyes widened in alarm. Wait, hold up, you just said it could destroy everything. The Terran flagship fired a missile before I could get in another word to stop them. At first, I thought that they had missed their mark. The projectile sailed through the Devourer fleet, not connecting with a single ship. Then it detonated at the rear of the formation, and all hell broke loose. Space itself seemed to shudder as an explosion tore through anything in its vicinity. The force was so powerful that our sensors could only provide an error message as measurement. At least a third of the Devourer fleet was instantly vaporized, as an improbable amount of energy and heat turned them to metal soup. There was no way any occupants of those ships lived through that. The enemy vessels further out from Ground Zero survived the initial blast, though many of them sustained heavy damage. But an invisible force seemed to be slowly dissecting each of them. I could only watch in disbelief as the mighty cruisers disintegrated bit by bit. I suppose the bomb had thrown out a swarm of nanobots, which had attacked the ship's structure on a molecular level. The Devourers hardly knew what hit them. By the time they thought to return fire, there was nothing left to return fire with. Their arsenal evaporated in a matter of seconds, and undoubtedly their personnel suffered the same fate. Where there had once been an unstoppable army, now only stood empty space. The humans had unleashed a wave of destruction that was unrivaled by anything I had ever seen in my military career, with just a single missile. Horror shot through my veins at the thought that they might one day turn their monstrous weapons on the Federation. There was no way to defend oneself against such diabolical creations. The aggression index needed an update. The kind of species that would invent weapons like that was no two. Glancing around at my crew, I saw stunned and aghast reactions that mirrored my own. If they ever became hostile, the humans represented a threat of the highest level. They could more than likely wipe out the entire galaxy without breaking a sweat. Now that's taken care of. You should have just invited us to the party to start with. Commander Rykov grinned. Tell you what, General, next time we meet, you owe us a beer. I frowned. The humans could ask for much more than a drink if they wanted to. Yeah, I think we can do that. Commander Rykov terminated the call, and I watched as the Terran ships warped back into hyperspace. I was still trying to wrap my mind around the whole thing, and I wondered how I was going to put this into words for the combat report. The Federation had no idea who the Terrans truly were, but I was going to make sure they did. And as I played the events of the day over in my mind, it clicked. I finally understood why such a powerful species would not show its hand. The humans avoid war because it would be too easy for them to win.